other. That is not what international humanitarian law says.
Okay, with respect, I was just asking about the women, and you turned it back to Israel.
A lot of kudos to Dana Bash. I mean, there's some people at her network that haven't been as forceful.
It always has to be, yeah, but Israel.
What the media is attempting to do right now to Pramila Jayapal, the chair of the Progressive Caucus, is just incredible. So I'm going to get to these clips later on in this video because I want to start with what actually matters. This is what's been going on over the past couple of days. First, initially, Israel claimed they were receptive to American warnings about civilian casualties. That's from John Kirby. Quote, they have said that they agree with our idea that the approach they take matters. So Israel claiming, oh yes, we are very concerned about civilian casualties. Yes, I agree, Joe Biden. I agree, Blinken. Yes, we need to be aware of the civilian casualties. And then the next day, over 700 killed in 24 hours as Israeli bombing blitz of Gaza rages, showing that they do not care. As I've said again and again, unless there is some sort of agreement attached to this kind of destruction, then what Joe Biden says or claims he cares about when it comes to civilian deaths, or what Blinken claims he cares about, doesn't matter. Unless you are putting aid on the line, unless you're saying, hey, Israel, we're going to cut aid to you if you continue indiscriminately bombing civilians in Gaza, then they're just going to keep doing it. So this reaction is not at all surprising from the Israeli government. They have shown that they do not care. Why would they care? There is nothing on the line here for them. Netanyahu, as Jeet here writes, Netanyahu is acting on the assumption that Biden slash Blinken's words about minimizing civilian deaths are just that, words with no consequences. Alas, Netanyahu is right about that. This is exactly right. You have to put something on the line. And until that happens, until you have these Western powers, the US, the UK, Canada, and others, unless you have them tell Israel, hey, we're going to cut support to you unless you care about civilians, then they're just going to keep indiscriminately bombing Gaza. Now, this was from a week ago, but it shows you how wild the deaths are. The fact that New York Times is actually covering this in an objective way. Gaza civilians under Israeli barrage are being killed at historic pace. So this was, again, as of a week ago, but 14,000 deaths, vast majority women and children, sitting at 10,000 here a week ago. The number now is 15,200 since October 7th. So it just keeps climbing. But no, today, this is what's most concerning. Yes, what Pramila Jayapal said on CNN, this is the biggest news story, according to Fox News, according to MSNBC. We'll get to their reaction from Morning Blowhard later on. But let's first get to what this terrible, shocking thing that Pramila Jayapal said on CNN.
It's kind of remarkable that this issue hasn't gotten enough attention globally. Widespread use of brutal sexual against Israeli women by Hamas. I've seen a lot of progressive women, generally speaking, they're quick to defend women's rights and speak out against using as a weapon of war, but downright silent on what we saw on October 7th and what might be happening inside Gaza right now to these hostages. Why is that?
I mean, I don't know that that's true. I think we always talk about the impact of war on women in particular. In fact, I remember 20 years ago, I did a petition around the war in Iraq.
Have you said,
saying
have
that,
you talked about it since October 7th?
Absolutely. And I've condemned what Hamas has done. I've condemned
specifically
all of
women?
the actions. Absolutely. Of course. But I think we have to remember that Israel is a democracy. That is why they are a strong ally of ours. And if they do not comply with international humanitarian law, they are bringing themselves to a place that makes it much more difficult strategically for them to be able to build the kinds of allies, to keep public opinion with them. And frankly, Morally, I think we cannot say that one war crime deserves another. That is not what international humanitarian law says.
Okay, with respect, I was just asking about the women, and you turned it back to Israel. I'm asking you about Hamas. In fact,
I already answered your question, Dana. I said it's horrific, and I
Okay.
think that rape is horrific, sexual assault is horrific. I think that it happens in war situations. Terrorist organizations like Hamas obviously are using these as tools. However, I think we have to be balanced about bringing in the outrages against Palestinians.
Yeah.
15,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes, three-quarters of whom
And it's-
are women and children.
and it's horrible, but you don't see Israeli soldiers being.
Well, Dana, I
Palestinian
think
women.
we're not.
You don't? You don't? Data Bash claims you don't see Israeli soldiers doing the same. There is story after story of documented violence against women by Israeli soldiers. This is I can go through headline after headline here. I'll link to all this below, this including from outlets from Israel. So we can just go on and on and on with these facts. This idea that, oh no, it's just the scary Palestinians doing it, not the fine, upstanding Israeli soldiers. Putting that aside, this idea, like, imagine, 20 years ago, being against the war in Iraq, and then being told by a so-called journalist on TV, but do you condemn Al-Qaeda? Oh, why don't you condemn Al-Qaeda? The reason why you have people like Pramila Jayapal and others who are actually on the right side of this issue calling out the Israeli government is because their government, in this case the U.S. government, is supporting the Israeli government. The U.S. government is not supporting Hamas. The UK government is not supporting Hamas. Europe is not supporting Hamas. You have the reason why Israel's being called out specifically right now is because their governments, including the people in government, their governments are backing the Israeli government, the right-wing Israeli government that is indiscriminately bombing civilians and has been doing so for 2 months, killing 15,000 people, compared to the 2,700 we killed on October 7th 2 months ago. This is why. If it seems like, oh, but why won't they condemn Hamas? What is Pramila Jayapal, who, by the way, has condemned what Hamas has done, but what would that do? The U.S. government isn't supporting Hamas. What is condemning Hamas from Pramila Jayapal or anyone else in government going to do? It doesn't do anything. You have here the U.S. government backing Israel. That is why there were specific criticisms of the Israeli government and what they are doing with U.S. aid in bombing civilians. This is so frustrating. And Ryan Grimm here, good tweet, saying Jayapal called the violence carried out by Hamas horrific and condemned it repeatedly in this interview. There's now a mini news cycle condemning Jayapal. The fact that there's now a mini news cycle condemning Jayapal is mind-bending. It really is. Like, seeing the reaction from, Fox News, you get it, right? So I'll show you Fox News, then I'll get to Morning Blowhard. But here's the headlines here from Mediaite, like the way they're covering this too. Kudos to Data Bash. Fox and Friends praise CNN anchor for pressing Pramila Jayapal. When you have Fox News siding with your journalism, maybe you're the one that fucked up.
A lot of kudos to Dana Bash. There's some people at her network that haven't been as forceful. There's some people at other networks that haven't been forceful, and she's the chair of the progressive, the Congresswoman, the Progressive Caucus. The question is, and I want people to really think about this. For months now, for years actually, we've heard about women's rights. We've heard about equal justice. We've heard about treating people by the content of that. We've seen marches in the streets.
Yes, and we all know that Fox News has been at the forefront of women's rights. When that women's march happened, they were right there with them. Are they really going to come out now and be like, oh, how dare Pramila Jayapal not stand up for women's rights, even though she clearly was, if you watch the interview, watch the clip. But oh, how dare she not stand up for women? By the way, fuck that women's march. It's just like, it's so, oh my God. I don't know how much more I can take of this, but we get to Morning Joe here, or sorry, Morning Blowhard. This went on, I don't know, 2-3 minutes. I had to, even it was too much for me. I could not watch the whole thing because I was burning with the rage of 1,000 fires while watching Morning Dipshit and Mika Moron talk about this. So let's just play a quick clip, as much as I could possibly take.
It always has to be, there's always moral equivocation. And this is what you're talking about before, Elise. There's always moral equivocation. You can never say that what Hamas did to Jewish women was absolutely savage and beyond the pale. It always has to be, yeah, but Israel.
It happens. There's no yeah, but here.
And also quote,
It happens?
It happens. No, actually, I don't see.
Can we play it again?
Israeli soldiers going into Gaza doing that.
He's really talking about moral equivocation. Moral equivocation. Annual Israeli and Palestinian fatalities. Moral equivocation. Really. And again, this is backed by the U.S. government. That is why there is a specific critique. No one is denying that what Hamas did on October 7th was horrifying. No one's denying that was a horrifying act. You don't have the U.S. government backing Hamas. You don't have all the world superpowers backing Hamas. You have them backing Israel as they do this to 15,000, 16,000 civilians. And by the way, anyone like questioning the numbers here, when the numbers were matching, there's some years here where the numbers match, Palestinians' deaths are near or matching Israeli deaths. There was no denying that. No one denied. There's never been any denial of any of the numbers up until now because it's so crazy that people defending Israel think, oh, it must be fake. They must be made up. But the entire world, all international organizations, the UN, they all clearly, including now, have agreed that, yes, the numbers are accurate. Like, if they were really faking the numbers, they would have faked them the whole time. But that hasn't been the case. Again, there are times when the numbers are the same on both sides. Here, it's clearly not. A moral equivocation, my ass. So this is just... It is... Thankfully, one show, one segment. Fox News, who knows Fox News? You know, they run with these things. But in terms of, so-called liberal media or so-called left-leaning media, this is why it's so important. It was so important to have voices like Mehdi Hassan on MSNBC. Even though he only had a weekly show on the network, and yes, he had a daily show, but that was on their streaming network. A weekly show on the network, it was at least a moment where you could actually trust what was being said. And now, once again, these are the idiots leading every morning on MSNBC. I only take solace in the fact that cable news is dying anyways. Like, people that actually just watch cable news and nothing else, that is a very slim amount of people. and they skew, not to offend any older viewers here, but they obviously, cable news skews older viewership. So it's a very slim amount of the population. And, you've probably seen polling too on this conflict. The majority of people on all political spectrums support a ceasefire. So people generally are on the correct side of this issue. Even if they don't know a whole lot, they know they want to see the end to civilian deaths, which is thankfully shows that most people aren't out of their minds. But it's still having a platform like, Morning Blowhard and him being able to put out this very manipulated framing about what is going on, who actually has power in the situation, the reality of what IDF soldiers have done, and of course him denying that again here, just as Fox News did, just as Dana Bash did. Just having that power, that platform to spread this garbage really is destructive, even if that destruction may not be as impactful as maybe it once was, 10, 20 years ago.